I don't think she's here.
Claire Toutant,
Here.
Barbara Mathewson here, Dan Haggerty,
Here.
and Dave Olson.
Here.
So we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the Board of Supervisors report. Carrie Dahlman here.
Hi,
Yes.
yes. Thanks, Claire. Good evening, Midcoast Community Council members and members of the public. My name is Carrie Dahlman, and I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley's office at San Mateo County. I have a few county updates to share with you this evening. Just recently at the Board of Supervisors meeting last week, the county board adopted a resolution condemning racism and injustice, declaring racism as a public health crisis, and affirming commitment to diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. COVID-19 response does continue to be a high priority, and I'd like to mention some of the relief programs related to the response. And after my update, I'll also paste links into the chat so that you can find more information about how to apply for financial assistance. San Mateo County is working to establish a small residential property owner assistance program. This will be presented to the board at the September 15th meeting with up to $2 million in CARES Act funding for the program. So that's upcoming. There was $1 million of CARES Act funding allocated to school districts for supplemental funding of their universal meal programs. And that money will be distributed through the County Office of Education. The County of San Mateo has provided $2 million each for the Immigrant Relief Fund and also the Child Care Relief Funds. These both continue to be a source of financial support for child care establishments and also for people who were not eligible for government assistance. And I'll be sure to paste those links for each of those in the chat as well. San Mateo County is also working on mobile mask distribution, and that's to ensure everyone has the proper personal protective equipment. A quick update on the census. The end date has been moved from October 31st to now the end date of the census is September 30. And our county team in the Office of Community Affairs is working diligently to ensure everyone in San Mateo County is counted, even with this shortened timeline. And my final update is I received a notice about a Caltrans public meeting, and that's going to be on Wednesday, August 26th. It'll be a virtual public meeting, and the topic is a proposal for crosswalk installation at Highway 1 and Miramar Drive. I would just say also thank you to Dave Olson for the quick turnaround and getting that posted on the MCC website. It's one of the latest blog posts on MCC's homepage, so you can find more information there. And I'll paste the necessary information in the chat as well for everyone to see. And my colleague Chris Hunter is also on the line. If you have anything else to add, those are all the updates for now. Oh, Claire, you're muted.
Thank you, Carrie. Are there any questions for Carrie? Okay. There are a number, thank you. There are a number of
Sorry, Claire, I have a question. Yes, sorry.
Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie, for presenting. I'm just curious as to how.
I hope you do.
I'm gonna feel a little bit caught off guard regarding the Caltrans meeting, August 25th.
No, I hope
That's
you
very
do.
soon. Yeah. So, how did that just happen?
That's a great question. I just received the notice forwarded in my email today, and I think that'd be a great question for the contact person who's listed on the flyer at Caltrans. Chris, did you have something to add?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I was going to mention this a little bit. We have some other people from the county that have a lot of information on some other topics, but this particular notice came from Caltrans without any coordination with the county. It was a surprise to us. We only received it today and sent it immediately. I sent it to Carrie to present to the MCC. I think that the information department of Caltrans probably sent it out independently to some of you already anyway. We didn't know anything about it, and this public meeting has nothing to do with our interest in figuring out a temporary solution to the Meteo Bridge. This is a painted on crosswalk that for some reason, it's the same thing that happened on Virginia. It was a Caltrans and some resident of the coast side independently working to figure out that this was a priority. To my knowledge, this was never even discussed as a possibility on the Connect the Coast side. So we've had a couple of questions like that. I just want to make it real clear. This is a complete Caltrans public meeting. And I would hope that people who are interested will attend that meeting and talk to Caltrans about it, because the county was not involved at all. So it was a surprise to us too.
I think that we all may have thoughts about the actual project, but I think we should save them for the Caltrans meeting since we know nothing.
Yeah.
And I at least give them credit for having a meeting rather than just painting it.
Yes, well, they got enough pushback on the Moss Beach one that's probably why. And I'll point out that that meeting is from 4 to 5:30, 2 weeks from tonight, with an MCC meeting following that at 7. So no doubt we will be discussing it at our next MCC meeting.
I know there are a number of government representatives here, many of whom are here for later topics on the agenda. But if there are people here who have general reports, Harvey?
Could I just wanted to, could we repeat again, please, exactly where community members can find out how to get on the meeting?
It's on the MCC website.
Okay.
Harvey from Half Moon Bay?
I just have one brief mention, and our city manager is here who wants to talk about the Meteo Bridge. Last night, the Planning Commission had a study session about the Half Moon Bay land use plan, which does affect the coast side in many ways. There were over 60 people on the call, for record as far as I'm concerned, and the meeting lasted over 5 hours. We had lots and lots of public comment. The thing that directly affects the Midcoast is our so-called circulation element, which you call Connect the Coast side. And there's going to be lots of cooperation between the city and the Connect the Coast side people about trying to do what we can to improve traffic, which is a horrible problem. It's been a horrible problem. It probably will be a horrible problem, but we're concerned and we'll do what we can. That's what I have to say. Bob Nesbitt is on the line, and I think he wants to talk about the bridge.
That'll be coming up later in the agenda. Bob, if you can stick around. Okay.
That was my intention. Thank you.
Okay. I do think that Michelle Weil has joined the meeting.
Yes, I'm here, Claire.
Thank you. Any other general government updates? Okay, moving on then.
Wait, Claire, I've got one.
Okay.
So a few meetings back, I was tasked as being liaison with Julie Mell, who's trying to present a drive-in movie down near the Johnston House, originally at the Oceana Hotel. And that is planned to happen tomorrow. She's gotten everything through the county. There's a possibility somebody's going to file an appeal, but that had not happened as of this afternoon. So Chasing Mavericks tomorrow night. If you look on Facebook or in Half Moon Bay Review, you can find it, or if you just Google for drive-in movie Half Moon Bay, you should find it. So I have some confidence and a lot of hope that it is going to happen tomorrow.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that briefly? This is Robert Brownstone.
Sure, Robert.
Well, two things. First, Dave, I just want to personally thank you for all the assistance. You helped Julie understand all the communications going back and forth. Really appreciate that. And I'm happy to say that the permit's been granted and that we're full speed ahead for tomorrow night.
Excellent.
Great, thanks.
Go and move on to public comment. So we have space for people to comment on items not on the agenda. Try to keep it to 3 minutes in length. And we had a request from Greg Diegas to speak first.
And for anybody else who wants to speak, if you can, on the participant panel, use raise your hand, that will help us.
Thanks, Claire. I was unable to attend the LULCP meeting at Half Moon Bay last night because you scheduled it on my birthday without checking with me. But I have done some research and looked into things, and I want to offer these thoughts in the spirit of starting a dialogue. If people can correct me and get back to me before I write anything about this, I would like to hear from you. But I have, of course, looked into the water situation in Half Moon Bay, and the last urban water management plan indicated in the third year of a drought, there was going to be a 47% cutback on water in Half Moon Bay. But wait, it gets worse. Bosqua has just produced an analysis, well, actually a year ago, but I just saw it, showing a 58% cutback to wholesale customers in an extended drought, including not only climate change, but the effects of a pending Bay Delta plan. And the Half Moon Bay effect of that will take some calculation and will not be available for another year because the deadline for the next urban water management plan is 2021 now. But I'm shocked that Half Moon Bay is projecting 3% growth when it sure looks to me, given what I know about the climate crisis, you're going to go years with half the water that you currently have. So I just can't understand this. Now, another thing that could happen, there's about $1 trillion in projects that Bosqua and SFPUC are considering to recycle, add reservoir capacity, desalinate, purchase water, put it into crystal springs that'll be lower quality and will require more treatment. And all of these things are going to increase the cost of water. So between the shortage of supply and the potential for significantly larger cost increases as a result of growth, I just don't understand how that 3% growth at Half Moon Bay benefits the residents. I understand how it benefits small businesses and real estate and construction, but I just don't get it why the residents of Half Moon Bay would go there. Second comment, and I'll wrap it up, is about fiscal sustainability. I've already established by trading letters with the county and received a reply from the deputy council. There is no method at the county for tracking the fiscal sustainability of projects they approve, like Big Wave. I don't see any governance in the LCLUP to monitor and enforce fiscal sustainability on the development projects they undertake. And you would think that before approval, any project undertaken needs to demonstrate that the incremental revenues and costs, including the perpetual operation, maintenance, and asset replenishment of the infrastructure created, has to be funded. Now, of course, this is something that is endemic to the entire nation, that public works agencies are not reserving necessary amounts for asset replenishment. And we're seeing that in Montera with the recent increase there. But I just can't understand how a plan can be viewed as sustainable if it doesn't also include a way of enforcing, monitoring, and remediating problems of fiscal sustainability.
Okay.
So if I've missed something in the plan and you know how they're handling this, I would love to hear about it. But I see those as two major shortcomings: water and the lack of fiscal sustainability as part of a governance ethic in Half Moon Bay. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Unfortunately, as you know, we don't discuss these things that are brought up in public comment. but you have people listening to you. Are there any other public comment? I don't see any other hands raised. Okay, we'll move on to announcements. Dave, did you have an announcement about a meeting or something?
No, I covered that under the announcements of the government section.
Any other announcements from the council?
Oh, I have an announcement. I was in the seat meeting on Friday and they announced that they're going to do the COVID testing on the 25th of this month again. So I haven't heard that it's been canceled yet. So I'm assuming it's still on. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's still on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of the 22nd of July, the minutes of the special meeting study session on the 29th of July, and the treasurer's report for 2019 to 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Is there a second?
Really?
Second.
Okay. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Oh, yes. Len Erickson, Michelle Weil,
Yes.
Claire Toutant,
Yes.
Dan Haggerty,
Yes.
Dave Olson,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
The consent agenda passes 4-1 or 5-0. Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. We've got a number of people here from a number of different agencies that I think will, and I really like that because it gives people a chance to hear other people's points of view. So we'll start with a presentation on the Mideo Bridge replacement and Highway 1 detour safety from DPW Deputy Director for Road Services, Qua Vo.
And Qua, which presentation would you like to start with?
I think Jim is going to start the presentation for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you could put Qua's slides up on the share screen. So just in terms of a little bit of background on the bridge.
What I was asking was which set. Did you want the most recent one on the bridge
You want a detour up there?
or the detour?
So I would start on the first slide. Was that what you were looking at?
Well, I have two decks. One is
Ah.
the detour and one is the bridge.
I will defer to Qua. I'd go with the bridge first.
Okay.
So in terms of background, the bridge that we call the Marauder Road Bridge was installed roughly 20 years ago at its current location. Prior to that, as I'm sure you all know, there was a concrete arch road bridge that was installed across Meteo Creek right around the time of World War II. That bridge subsequently was replaced or left in place and replaced with a pedestrian bridge. The bridge itself is a steel structure. And over the past few years, we've been watching that structure and watching the condition of it. And we've been repairing it as we can. Recently, about 2 years ago, we were kind of concerned about the condition of the bridge. So we had a structural engineering firm come in and do an evaluation of the structure itself. And at that time, the firm said that we should get about 2 more years of life out of the bridge. At that point, we began the process of hiring a structural engineering firm to design a replacement for that bridge. So we got a structural engineering firm on board. The design process is in progress. And about, I want to say 2 months ago, we were developing our capital program and had a request to have that, the structural, the longevity study or the longevity evaluation updated to see how much more life we could get out of the bridge. At that point, a structural engineer went out and evaluated the bridge and told us that we needed to close that bridge immediately, that they were concerned with failure of the bridge under loading. That came to us, I want to say about 2 weeks before the actual bridge closure. So again, when we got that information, we met internally, discussed closure of the bridge, and also started looking into a detour plan. At that point, our roads division, and Quaz, the deputy director of roads, reached out to Caltrans to ask them, well, actually to request a detour on Highway 1. We were concerned with when we close that bridge, there's really no other way to get around Meteo Creek other than Highway 1. The original reaction from Caltrans was to deny us. So at that point, we were rather frustrated. Supervisor Horsley was involved in these discussions, and Supervisor Horsley contacted Caltrans district director, who became involved in that. There is a meeting set up for August 17th with the district director to talk about that. Well, I guess Chris says no. Nonetheless, I guess the email string that we had with Caltrans was effective because we submitted an encroachment permit application to provide a detour on Highway 1, and it's been accepted, and we've received comments from Caltrans. So we're now responding to those comments. But that's a little bit on the history. I'll turn it over to Kwa right now to talk a little bit about the bridge itself and the detour plan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jim. Good evening. This is Kwa Vo. I'm the Deputy Director for the Road Services Division at Public Works Department. As you see in front of you, here is the couple slide presentation that I prepared today. Forward over to Dave. I'm sure you all are familiar with the location. The reasons why we had to close the bridge down are represented here in these pictures. The first picture you see here is on the top deck of the surface where you can see the steel, it's all rusted, the kickboard that's also rusted, the wooden deck towards the right of your screen, that's also rotted out. If Dave, if you can move the slide up just a little bit.
Sure. I'm having technical problems today, you can tell. There you go.
That's okay. So slide 2 there shows different perspectives of the same bridge. And you can see the concrete arch below the bridge that's falling apart there from different perspectives and different angle. And the concrete is still falling on a daily basis. Can you go to the next slide, please, Dave? And these are some pictures that our structural engineers took below the bridge of the actual steel support. As you can see there, a lot of the steel members are delaminating. And what that is the rolled steel are actually peeling layer by layer, and they are practically falling apart. That's one of the reasons why the structural engineers sent us that notification that the bridge should be closed immediately. And that was the steps that we took to close the bridge. Next slide, please. So this is a schematic of the new bridge that's under design. It would be a 110 feet long single span aluminum bridge. We're evaluating whether or not we should use timber decking material or a reinforced recycled plastic material as the decking material. So that's still to be determined. But this is a general concept of what the bridge replacement is going to look like once we get all the permitting from the agencies. So this is just a very, very brief summary of the reason why the bridge had to be closed and the plan for the bridge replacement. Just want to go back to the encroachment permit application that we sent to Caltrans last week. We did get comments back from Caltrans. We had 4 pages of comments back from Caltrans that requested additional information from us in order for them to complete the evaluation of the detour plans. Can you pull up those 2 sheets, Dave?
Yep, can I do that in just a second here?
So the general concept is to create a pedestrian path on the southbound direction along the shoulder of State Route 1, we're thinking about starting it just south of Meteo and State Route 1 intersection, just beyond the bus stop, and start the taper with K-rails all the way down to Miramar Drive. Because because it is very narrow between the guardrail at Miramar Drive and the through lane, in order for us to put a detour there that's wide enough for pedestrian and bicyclists and anybody else that need to use that as a detour, we're going to have to shift all of that out by taking the left turn lane in both directions out completely as part of that detour plan. In order for us to do that, we're planning on shifting the through lane all the way out an additional 5 feet. So typically, that's how we're planning on the detour is removal of the left turn lane in each direction, the northbound and the southbound into Miramar Drive, to create that one through lane for traffic and enough room for the detour. As you can see there from the top screen going down, we're about where you see the CC temp crash cushion. That's the approximate location where the K-rail will start, and it will taper out to the intersection of Miramar Drive, where it would be about 5 feet from the existing edge line. So that would give us about 9 feet from the guardrail to the backside of the K-rail. And typically, you only need 8 feet for a 2-lane in a minimum width configuration for bicyclists and pedestrian. So we believe we have enough room there, and that's what Caltrans is looking for, is more clearly defined details, the dimensions, the locations where all the K-rails are going to be, the type of crash cushion we want to put in there. And then the other comments that they ask us to clarify is, if you're going north, if you're looking from the bottom of the picture going up where it says temp delineators, it's reconfiguration or realignment of the center lane line so that the southbound through lane will travel in a straighter direction instead of having to create a jog as they go across the intersection. Those are just minor details, design details that we can clarify and submit that to Caltrans. But in general, that's the concept of this detour plan. By eliminating the 2 left turn lanes in each direction, we'll be able to provide that detour and a safe passage for pedestrians to go from Meteo down to Miramar and get back onto the trail. The second slide, please, Dave. So this is from a street view. If you're looking at in the south direction going south, that's the general idea of what we're looking at. You can see the K-rails images are on the right-hand side there on that white edge line. We call that the fog line. And generally the K-rails are going to be back to back to back all the way down towards Meteo. And the existing left turn lane into East Miramar, that will be removed as part of this temporary detour. And there will only be through traffic. And if anybody that wants to make a left turn there, they won't be able to make a left turn. We are providing detours so residents on the east side could make their left before they get to Miramar, or they would have to take detours further south or further north of this intersection. And that's the general concept of our detour plan. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as much as I can, as best as I can.
I tell you, before we go to questions, if you could get that slide back with the design of the new bridge, I want to talk a little bit about that and explain some of the complexity on that project. So I'll just start in. So the bridge itself, when you think about it, it would sound like it would be fairly simple to replace a pedestrian bridge, just lift it on and lift it off. The difference with this project, though, is the type of bridge we're using. Kwa mentioned that we're going to go with an aluminum bridge because obviously steel is not a great option out there. The issue with using aluminum, though, is aluminum is not quite as strong as steel. So the depth of the bridge girders, which is basically the height from the top of the bridge railing to the bottom of the bridge itself, is actually deeper than the steel bridge because you need a greater size girder because the aluminum is not as strong as steel. What that required us to do was to modify the abutments and put in new bridge foundations on either side of the bridge. Additionally, when we remove that concrete arch structure, there's going to be some exposed sections of the bluffs, more exposed sections in those areas. So part of this project as well is to do what's called soil nailing on the sides of the slope along the abutments to protect the abutments from erosion. The bridge itself is in 60% design. We've applied for permits from the Army Corps of Engineers, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the California Coastal Commission, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We've gotten responses back from the Corps and the Coastal Commission. We've not yet heard from Fish and Wildlife or the Regional Water Quality Control Board yet. But the timing on this is somewhat unfortunate. We can't construct the bridge in the wintertime because of the tremendous wave action out there and the weather. We just can't go in there and open up the side of that slope with the wave action that we get out there. So I think with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, let's start with clarifying questions from council. Dave?
Sure. A couple things. Since we have the bridge slide up right now, I'll ask. I'm assuming from the way I'm looking at the aerial view that the abutments are going to be 10 or 12 feet further back than the existing abutments. Is that correct?
Not 10 or 12 feet. They're fairly close. I don't have that answer, but we can try to get that to you.
Okay. It seems like given the rate of erosion at that location, despite riprap attempts and everything else, that even with soil nailing, it might be a good idea to move it back and go for a longer bridge. Other clarification is roughly how many linear feet along the creek bed of soil nailing do you expect?
You know, I don't have the exact figures, but we're going to wrap the soil nail wall around the abutment on both sides of the bridge. And then part of it on the south side was going to extend a little bit further towards the south, not quite to that condominium development, but further around that area to stop that erosion there. But again, we can supply what information that you're asking for through Supervisor Horsley's office.
Okay, and I'll point out that the riprap that's on the south side west of the bridge is illegal riprap that the Coastal Commission has ordered that condo to have removed. So I would hope that there's no plan to try and extend the soil nail to the riprap because the riprap won't be there. That's it for me.
Michelle, any clarifying questions?
No, none for me, thanks.
Dan, any clarifying questions?
Yes, thank you, Kwa and Jim. So I think I've got three basic questions. Number one, regarding the study by the engineer that originally gave it some extra life and then, it's shut it down recently. Was that the same engineering firm, and did they do the exact same testing and inspection method?
So the most recent evaluation was a visual evaluation. The evaluation they did 2 years ago was more of a detailed evaluation with a report. That engineer is not the engineer that's designing the bridge. The ones that are doing the structural evaluation are an independent firm from them.
Right. The engineering firm that is designing the bridge, are they the ones that just recently inspected it, that closed it, determined?
No, they're two separate firms.
Right. So my question was, there were two inspections, one a couple years ago and then one just recently.
Correct.
Was that done by the same engineering firm with the same inspection methods?
Yes. Yeah, those two reviews were done by the same firm.
Okay. It just deteriorated faster than they expected, I guess it sounds like.
Well, not necessarily. The review they did 2 years ago said it would have about 2 years of life, and that's when we began design. So they were pretty darn close. We were hoping to get a little more life out of it, but unfortunately we can't.
Okay. And then the greater plan, we've known about this erosion of this area for quite a while. What's the status of the greater plan? I've heard in the past ideas of a few different things, but I thought it was somewhat on track. So can you update a little bit better? Because this is a concerning area, and what's it seems like the presentation was just specifically on the bridge only, and not a solution to the whole area.
That's correct. So we've been looking at this area for a while. As you all know, Marauder Road has been slowly eroding. In fact, half of this road is in Half Moon Bay. Part of that is gone. What we've done is try to work with the Coastal Commission to maintain the riprap wall along Marauder Road as best as possible. As you know, the Coastal Commission is not in favor of riprap. I want to say 3 years ago, had within the county what we called an enhanced flood control function, where we were looking at sea level rise impacts both on the bay side and the coast side. That led to the creation of this flood and sea level rise resiliency district, which was created in January. At that point, the county really took a step back from looking at Marauder Road, and we'll be working with the sea level rise district on what they want to do with that. Eventually, there's really two solutions here. One is to protect it. We did have a solution a while back where we were going to essentially put sheet piles into Marauder Road and leave them about 3 or 4 foot high, create a 1-lane road on Marauder, and have the coastal trail be on the ocean side of those sheet piles and the vehicle traffic on the east side of the sheet piles, and allow those sheet piles to dissipate the wave action. Eventually, the road would just totally erode away up to those sheet piles, and you would then have a 1-lane road. I'm not sure whether the Coastal Commission would accept that solution, but at this point, we're going to work with the sea level rise district and see if they have some other solutions. But just in the short term, this bridge itself is a major connector on the coastal trail. We did look at different alignments when we looked at the replacing the bridge, moving it further inland. Unfortunately, to do that, there's very limited right of way. We also received some pretty negative feedback from the neighbors, not wanting additional pedestrian traffic on their streets that they don't have right now. So what we're doing with this project is replacing this bridge. This will buy 30 or 40 years in this location. Over that time, there's going to need to be kind of a comprehensive solution to Marauder Road, as well as what happens with this bridge.
Thank you, Jim. Are you familiar with the work going on at the Esplanade Beach in Pacifica?
No, I'm not. I know there is work going on. I'm just not familiar with it.
The contractor that's going to be doing the soil nailing, would that be Drill Tech?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, they're essentially they've been working in that area for 10 years now, or 9 years, something like that. They did some drilling in and some shotcrete, and some of it has failed. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there now. It looks like they're going to expand it and make it bigger, improve. So certainly that is an example that at least we can look at, be aware of, and measure how that's coming along, and how that is working. I understand Drill Tech is doing the work up there. I know that they also did the work along Highway 92 and Highway 1. So I guess they're specialists in that area, and I kind of would expect that they're probably going to do the work. I don't know of any other contractors that do that work. I could be wrong.
I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood your question. So in terms of who will do the work on this bridge, we'll be competitively bidding the bridge. Most likely the prime on this job is going to be, the prime contractor is going to be the bridge contractor, and then they will hire a subcontractor to do the soil nailing itself. But we don't necessarily choose a contractor. It goes through the competitive bid process, and we pick the low bidder who is most qualified. So we won't know until we actually bid it to find out who we get.
Okay.
Let's keep it with clarifying questions. I need to move on to Barbara for a clarifying question.
Thank you. I have a question about the decking. You had said that it possibly would be wood or a plastic wood. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it's a reinforced recycled plastic material.
Is that a good idea to have plastic there, right there at the ocean? Because it's going to be shedding plastics. So
From the information that we get from the contractor, they've done a lot of testing, and the plastic itself is not the same kind that you see that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. It's more commercial grade type product. It doesn't shed. It's UV resistant. So the only thing that we're concerned, or one of the things that we're trying to get them to verify, is the potential for slippery, because it's in that wet area. If they can address that for us, that could be a very viable solution to use this reinforced recycled lumber material.
Thank you.
I have one clarifying question myself. I assume that whatever gets done with the K-rail or whatever solution Caltrans will agree to is not going to happen overnight, although it should happen as quickly as possible. In the interim, I wonder if anything could be done, like signage, like pedestrians and roadway, or lighting, or anything in that area that would be able to be done immediately.
We can't do anything without Caltrans and coaching permit. Even if we were to put signs out there, they won't let us do anything without that encroaching permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's open the floor for comments and questions from the attendees. Please raise your hand if you have something you want to say, and we'll start with Robert Broadstone. If you could unmute yourself.
Thanks, and thanks, Jim, for coming to this meeting. A couple of quick questions. The width of this proposed bridge, because I can't really make it out here, is that equivalent to the width of the current bridge? Or
the new bridge is about 10 feet wide.
And how does that compare to the current bridge?
I believe it's about the same.
Okay, because the current bridge is pretty wide and really sustains good traffic. You know, people go in both directions, carriages, etc. And I know one of the bridges on the trail that was replaced was a couple of feet short, and you can really tell the difference when you're trying to pass folks. So just something to keep in mind, that we want to certainly not make it any less wide, I think, than the current bridge based on the amount of traffic. Secondly, is the intention to keep the Meteo Creek culvert under highway open? Because that's one of the safe ways that I think is used to get across the highway, right? School kids use it bicyclists and walkers.
So we're not going to do anything with the culvert under the Meteo Creek Bridge.
Right, so that'll just remain as is, open for people to get.
Yeah, I wasn't aware people were walking under there, but we're not.
Apparently, yeah, I got a couple of people writing saying, you know, can you make sure that they don't close that culvert because a lot of people use it.
No, we won't touch that.
Okay, great. That's all I got for now.
Thank you. Bob Nesbitt?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Well, first, just thank you to Jim, Qua, Chris, Supervisor Horsley, and everyone else, I guess, who tried to get to Caltrans to make this happen, because absolutely this is the right thing that they're proposing to do. And maybe they just didn't sense the urgency at first. That's understandable, maybe. And that's why it was denied initially when the Public Works Department asked. But clearly, some cages were rattled and a lot of people made calls, and I was one of those. And so I'm glad to see that they are doing that. So thank you all. I heard about it the morning that it was closed, and I was quickly on the phone trying to talk to anyone who would listen or pick up. And I'll have to say that Supervisor Horsley's office was very responsive. I'd never met Jim, and Jim called me back immediately and was right on it. So I'm really appreciative that all this action was taken. And I do think, from what I see of the detour plan, that they're definitely heading in what I believe is the right direction. So I have a couple comments, questions on that. So first, I am an avid cyclist. I ride a bike 5 or 6 days a week, and I ride this section frequently. So I know it very well, and I know I have a good sense of roads that are safe and roads and situations that are unsafe. And since I've been out here on the coast for 18 months, in my opinion, this bridge, I saw it as unsafe even before this detour. So this bridge, as a cyclist, jumped out at me early on when I moved here as being kind of an unsafe situation. And I asked the city engineer, I drew up a little plan, almost very similar to what Caltrans is proposing, not the K-rail, but to get rid of the turn pocket. That turn pocket is not needed. There's alternatives. 2 alternatives to get to the neighborhoods on both sides. So Caltrans is absolutely right. They can get rid of the turn pocket. Might be a little inconvenience to the people that live there, but it's not necessary. And so my comment is that yeah, I saw that turn pocket as a problem even before the detour. So my questions are, the other side of the road going northbound, it was really where the danger was before this detour. If you're a cyclist, there's no shoulder going northbound. And so by eliminating the turn pocket, you can get the K-rail in, make the detour safe. But I'm also hoping that leaves enough room to have maybe get a little shoulder going northbound. 4 feet would be awesome when they restripe it for people who are traveling northbound on the correct lane. So that would be really nice to see. And then my next comment and question is back to that turn pocket not being necessarily, in my humble opinion, even after this detour's done. I think that's the perfect timing after a year or 2 years of detour to make it permanent and not put that turn pocket back. Then you'll have the room for better shoulders, much safer. And so I would just hope that we can make that appeal to Caltrans as well when it gets to that point. So again, thank you so much. I saw this as urgent. This was an accident waiting to happen, in my opinion, very dangerous. And I just applaud all the collective efforts to get Caltrans to do this. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Chris Johnson?
Thank you, Claire. I'm a resident of El Granada, and like Bob, I frequently ride my bike, both on the coastal trail and on this stretch of Highway 1. And I appreciate Jim's recap of the history of this situation, because it does shed some light on like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why didn't this happen? However, I just feel like I want to be a voice from the community to just say, I get it. People are working hard and we're trying to do something, but really, this is an unconscionable situation. I just go through the timeline here. We heard 2 years ago that this bridge had 2 years of life left. So that's 2 years. And Jim said it went right about to the line. Then 2 weeks before the bridge was closed, it was learned that the bridge was going to be closed. Now we're 2 weeks past the closure of the bridge. There's still not even a sign on Highway 1. I understand that Caltrans is being Caltrans about it, but there's nothing on Highway 1 to indicate to the drivers or the people who are being detoured out there. And when I rode my bike there yesterday, not only is that one of the most dangerous corners on Highway 1 on the coast side, because of the curve of the road, the lack of line of sight, the fact that the bridge is there, so that is the narrowest section of shoulder along that whole way there, and the fact that it's a hard right turn into, I think, Miramar Drive there, so it's a blind turn. And now you've got pedestrian traffic and bikes going two ways in that little narrow shoulder with nary a sign, nary an electronic sign or anything to indicate that there's going to be people pushing strollers going through there. So there was plenty of time to come up with something. And then for the solution to be K-rail and I think I read somewhere that this project is going to take a year to replace this bridge. So that K-rail is going to be there at a pinch point on Highway 1 where people do need those turn lanes to turn down to beach access. And there's a business right there that is very busy. So people do need those turn lanes. And there's going to be K-rail there for a year, slowing down traffic, not to mention putting people at risk. And we've had over 2 years to come up with some kind of solution. And the solution we have that's still not even there, we don't even have a single sign, is K-rail for a year. That's just not acceptable from a community perspective. And I'm sorry if I'm taking the voice of the community. I feel like I'm a parent who won't let my child go that way. I ride my bike there and I drive there a lot, so I see what's happening on this corner. To not have a solution in place or even thought of beyond K-rail, people are transiting below the road there, and a solution for crossing Meteo Creek has already been built on the east side that is effective in all weathers and is used frequently. Bob probably knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so it can be done on the west side as well and get people off the highway. I mean, come on, you can build some kind of structure that hangs with hooks over the side of the guardrail there and has some cantilever effect. I mean, putting K-rail there for a year, that's not good enough. So I appreciate the work. It's not good enough. And I'm really disappointed that we've had over 2 years to think about this. And now here we are. Somebody's going to get hurt. Last year when it was closed for like Labor Day weekend, I think it was closed for a brief period of time. Somebody was hurt on that exact same detour coming up, walking down the highway northbound in the southbound shoulder. Thank you to the MCC for being on this, and thank you for Jim and Kwa for working on it. Please faster, push harder. I know Caltrans is Caltrans, but somebody is going to get hurt and it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let's try to keep this to 3 minutes. We do have people keeping time, if you can sort of alert us when we get to that point. Let's see, the next person is Michelle Dragonet.
So my first question is, why would you rebuild a bridge that's gone out after 20 years in the same place with sea level rise and erosion? Why would you rebuild it there? And why wouldn't you build it parallel to the existing Arroyo Bridge at Highway 1? You could easily, within Caltrans, not you because you're county, but Caltrans could use their easement to be able to build a pedestrian bike bridge up at the highway. And maybe the county puts in for it because maybe you should. And that would take some resistance out of Caltrans because they're always funding very oriented. But then you have a bridge that will last for 100 years. And I don't think the bridge, if you rebuild it at 100, foot span bridge, if you rebuild it right there. I just met with Michael Powers. Do you know who he is? He lives right there. And he's been battling Army Corps of Engineers since 1969. And if you go to my Instagram, Coastside Buzz Instagram, you can see an amazing picture that was mid 1960s. And the waves, they're little rollers, just teeny little rollers, all the way up to his house. And now you have a 30-foot cliff. So that's what the Army Corps of Engineers did with the jetty. And it's not going to get better. I mean, they have admitted to, you can interview Michael for yourself. So you get some more data. He's very open to talking. But I'm asking the question. I guess you can't answer it, but I would like an answer to it. Why would you consider building a bridge? And I know in November of 2019, Supervisor Horsley at an MCC meeting said that City Manager Caliguli had given $3 million for that bridge. I can only see that bridge doubling in its cost as erosion becomes more difficult. So I'm just wondering why you would rebuild that bridge there and not go build it inland. The other thing is, Michael showed me a picture, if again, you go to the Instagram post, of the concrete sort of one-way plan that he has had, so 3D rendering. And just speaking to county's point of view in terms of somehow moderating that stretch, because the jetty is going to take out that area. That's just the way it works. It's going to continue to take it out.
We need to move on. Thank you, though. Next is Emma Bowman. Emma?
Sorry, I was working with unmute. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody that's worked on this. I use that trail probably 5 days a week. I know exactly what you're talking about. I knew the day it was closed. And anything we can do to speed up the easement on Highway 1 and make that a little safer, because I also agree with the previous feedback that, yeah, someone's going to get hurt there. That's it. Used up all my time quickly.
Thank you, Emma. Greg Diegues?
I appreciate this is becoming more complicated than you probably thought when you started with it. But I'm unclear what's happening to the sewer pipe. And if you've lived out here long enough, you know we've had major sewer spills. It looks to me like there's still a sewer pipe there. And the questions are along the lines of what Michelle said. Given that this is going to go away 10 or 20 years, has anybody talked to the sewer authority or whoever has the jurisdiction for that sewer pipe there about moving it or protecting it better than it seems to be in that diagram? Am I crazy enough to remember that people were actually walking on these pipes at one point in time? And so there should be something to prevent that for sure, teenagers being what they will. So that's my concern. My concern is, what are you doing about the sewer pipe? And I guess to Michelle's point, can we make it last a little longer? And I'm gathering that's a huge complexity that you probably didn't want to think about. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. I don't see any other hands raised.
Paulette wanted to speak.
Oh, Paulette. Okay, please. Paulette Eisen.
So thank you, especially Jim Porter and Kwa Vo. I'm so glad that you're both here to address this. I am on the Bike and Pedestrian Access Committee in Half Moon Bay. But before that, I was a member of the Friends of the Bridge. We were adamant about making sure that we could get the Pilarcitos Bridge fixed in a timely way, because this coastal path is so critical. And I don't know if you really appreciate that aspect of it, that this isn't just a recreation, which is very important to the coast side even as a recreation, but for a lot of people, this is their mode of transportation to get, especially from El Granada to Half Moon Bay and back. that this is a critical path for us, because we all know that traffic, especially on the weekend, is impossible in this area. And so a lot of people do use their bikes or their feet to get from one place to another along this path. It's really critical. And so when we were involved with that other bridge, we also were looking at, the assessments of all our bridges. And the Sweetwood Bridge was the next thing that we saw absolutely needed to be replaced. Fortunately, in a rare move, the state took a proactive take, and instead of waiting for the bridge to collapse, they actually replaced that bridge in a pretty quick amount of time, which was great. We weren't that put out. The community was not that put out. And of course, we knew that the Meteo Bridge was absolutely, 5 years ago, we knew that that bridge for sure was an iffy, it was going to need to be replaced. The fact that you had that assessment 2 years ago, I don't understand. Do you wait until it's this situation that we find ourselves in, instead of being more proactive, that you knew this bridge had to be replaced, something had to happen? So yes, this part is absolutely incredibly disappointing. I have not heard, though, from either of you what the timeline is to get this bridge replaced, what the timeline is for getting the work started, and for what the timeline is for the duration. And the good thing is that you're taking the safety aspect of this detour seriously, because it is very unsafe. As soon as I heard this bridge was out, I went over there, and there was nothing, and I thought, oh my God, this is really truly unsafe. And so I'm glad to hear that you're addressing that. I just hope, as Chris Johnson was talking, I just hope it's done really well for the time being, while we are frustrated, I'm sure, as a community, to get this thing done and make sure it's done properly.
Thank you, Paulette. Yeah. I don't think there are any more raised hands.
Crystalline.
What?
Crystalline just raised her
Oh,
hand.
Crystalline? Oh, please, Crystalline, please.
Thank you very much. I would just like to echo the previous sentiments about how important the bridge is, and it does feel like the replacement timeline feels very long, considering how quickly it was shut down, and obviously good work takes time, but we have a lot of workers, our workforce, that has to walk to work or ride their bikes to work or their horses. And a lot of people are using that bridge and don't have cars, and the bus is a little bit of a wonky situation. So it is very important that this bridge be treated not just as a recreational trail bridge, but one that gets our workforce from one side of the coast side to the other, as well as families that live in the Half Moon Bay side but have to get to the harbor to do fishing because that's how they get their dinner. So there's a lot of community people who are really need that connection, and the detour is great. I think no matter what you do, it's going to be dangerous, no matter how much you are able to put there, because it's a freeway and freeways are dangerous. So any expedition of getting this bridge built is highly, highly appreciated. Thank you.
And we have one more person raising their hands, Kimberly Williams.
Hi. Just given the point of the heavy use of the bridge, and I've also used that bridge, I have biked from Moss Beach to Half Moon Bay many times, going across that bridge or points there in between. So I know what the situation is. But I'd like to get to the point of the sea level rise, and that the Coastal Commission actually is not supporting preserving the coastal trail, but supports moving it back and we will have to do that eventually. So this seems actually like a good juncture, instead of buying us 40 years' time, to look at that more closely and to think about moving it sooner, if that's possible. And I know that you said you investigated options in the neighborhood, but I think maybe we should relook at that again and think about another opportunity to move the bridge back sooner. Thanks.
All right. It looks like Claire has dropped off somehow and is not getting back on. So I will jump in briefly until she's back on. Is there anybody else from the community who wants to speak who has not been able to raise their hand? Hold on a second. Claire is calling me. Dan, go ahead.
Yes. Question to Jim or Kwa. Well, certainly I agree with many of the community members how important this is. Specifically for the overall plan of what will take place, including the extent of the soil nailing and everything. Are the complete plans available to the public right now as to whatever's going to be built, and specifically the soil nailing and how far it's going to connect, how far and how it will connect to the riprap, existing riprap?
No, we're in design. So it's currently at about 60%. We have not received comments back from all the agencies, so it's going to be, evolving. Once the plans are done, they'll be available to the public once we get to the bid process. So, but it's just not there yet.
Okay. Either Kwa or Jim, perhaps one of you could share what you think the likely timeline is for design and construction.
Sure. So as I said, we're in design now. It's August. A lot is going to depend upon the comments we get back from the regulatory agency. But ideally, the design itself should be completed by the end of the year at the latest. The question is how long the environmental process and the permitting process will take. Let's say if everything lines up and we get our permits by January, we'll likely bid the project in March, award in April. The contractor should be able to work in May, depending upon title action and wave action. And then in terms of completion, it's probably going to be, I don't know, what do you think, Kwa? Probably 4 months?
Yeah, 3 to 4 months.
3 or 4 months.
Great. Claire, you are on mute.
Okay, I'm back. I'm not sure where we are. It looks like Jim and Kwa were giving us some feedback to the remarks they heard. Is that correct?
Just on the timeline. I don't know if they wanted to give other feedback or answer any of the other questions or not. We hadn't quite gotten there.
Do either of you have more remarks that you would like to address?
Yeah, I heard a couple of things I can address. In terms of the sewer line, we have contacted the sewer authority out there. They want to replace that line in its current location under the bridge. They will be reviewing the plans, obviously, and making comments. They will be owning that sewer line. So they have chosen to put it back in place and not reroute. And then I was trying to think of the other question. That was the one I thought about. Kwa, do you have other responses?
Yeah, we just want to
ahead.
acknowledge the concerns that the community has about expediting the encroachment permit process, the planning process, the design process, and also the construction process. So we are actively working on addressing Caltrans' comments. A lot of their questions and comments were about safety and how to address those safety to their satisfaction. So we're doing as fast and as quick as we can to get all that information to them. We're hoping to get all back to them by Friday this week. so that they could review their with all of their staff and hopefully give us their coaching permit so we can get moving on the temporary detour. Yesterday, our staff met with the contractor on site to go over what we anticipate will be the plan for the detour, the limits of where the K-rails are going to be, the restriping, the grinding, the signage, with the realignment and all of that. So we're going parallel with what we're doing with Caltrans with the contractor. So when we get the encroachment permit, hopefully we'll be able to get a contract executed with the contractor and have them out there within a few days after the encroachment permit is received. We're also actively trying to get response back from the two agencies that we have not heard from. We're following up with them and see what we can do to help them review our packages sooner and get comments back faster. With the two agencies that we received comments already, we have already responded back to those agencies, and we're actively getting additional information in anticipation of the other agencies' needs. So we're really are moving forward, and we are aware of the urgency and the needs that the community has to get this bridge replaced.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do remember what I was going to talk about. There was some comments regarding relocating the bridge back further towards Highway 1. We did take a look at an alternate alignment. It's approximately, I want to say, 300 or 400 feet to the east. The county has two what we call paper streets or undeveloped roads out there that are a little bit offset. One of the consultants that's designing the new structure lives out on the Midcoast, and he was actually walking back there looking. So he was caught by one of the neighbors back there who asked him what he's doing, and he told him, and he was pretty much run out of the neighborhood. So I think there needs to be an alternate route, but there would be a very extensive public process before that occurred. Because as you know, the amount of volume on the coastal trail there is extremely high. And we would be rerouting that through a neighborhood. And clearly the neighborhood would want to have a say as to what that alignment is. I think ultimately, one of the commenters suggested an alignment near Highway 1. I think that's probably a good thing to look at. I think that's probably the easiest solution at this point. But in terms of expediency, the fastest way to replace this is to put it back where it is right now. The process has been started. If we were to look at an alternative alignment, it would take quite a bit longer. We'd have to essentially start over. So I think that's everything that I heard. And again, I appreciate what Kwa said. And just so that you know, this is the highest priority that we have right now. Although we have several projects going, this has risen to the top. So we're trying to do all we can to expedite this and get this replaced as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Jim. I see a couple more hands up. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that this presentation, at least on my computer, there was a lot of breakup. I don't know if I'm the only one that's been, experiencing this. Claire broke off. I want to watch this presentation again, and I hope that the recording came in with high quality. I don't know if anybody else
is on the website as well. That's the highest quality view you'll get.
Yeah, am I the only one that's been experiencing, an internet?
Other than being dropped off, it was fine.
Okay.
You just check it on the website. Thank you, Dan. Kimberly Williams.
Hi. So I appreciate that response that the timeline is urgent. I understand that. I will say that area that you mentioned, the undeveloped roads back there that are 300 feet to the east, I think you said, there are frequently bike riders and pedestrians who traverse that. Sometimes I'm one of them. I've never been approached by anybody, and I've been doing that for 13 years. So I think that I'd encourage you to relook at that. It could be that we don't have time to do that, but I think we should look at it. because that seems to me a better solution, and it would probably be an easier solution in the long run to deal with. Thanks.
Thank you, Kimberly. Dave, did you have your hand up?
Yep, I've been waiting. And Paulette, I see you waving that you want to speak again too. So I am one of the people who's been pushing to move it back to the Alameda, the old railroad right away, which I believe is the location that you've been talking about, Jim. It's unfortunate, but when the railroad gave up the right of way, the straight through route was sold off as private property, the plot that was going to be the old railroad station. So there's an offset, and to build there would require eminent domain to take a chunk of either one or two corners of corners of two lots, depending on how you routed. So it is definitely, an eminent domain is not a fast process. I do believe it would be a really good idea for the county to start that process as soon as this bridge replacement is done, because with sea level rise and erosion, even if the Surfers Beach replenishment helps and some of the other things help, that is not going to be there for very long. And we are already losing the coastal trail just south of it anyway. So the coastal trail is going to have to move in. Coastal Commission has weighed in on that. Thanks again to Surfrider, who had an excellent presentation and convinced the Coastal Commission to override their staff. And again, the riprap that's on the north side of the condo is illegal. Part of that whole hearing was that it's going to have to come out, and the condo was supposed to have a stairway down to the beach there and never did it, and the Coastal Commission is going to hold them to that as well. So any shotcrete wall, nailing, anything else there needs to take all of that into account. I personally very strongly believe that the emergency riprap that the county placed just north of Meteo Creek is a major reason why the erosion accelerated there in the last 2 years. And that is what almost always happens with emergency riprap projects. And if there is a new armoring going in for the bridge, that is just going to cause more problems either upstream in the creek bed or down current to the south of the condo. And the county may very well be looking at a lawsuit from the condo because it's going to increase the erosion of their parking lot. So I am very strongly opposed to any armoring there. If it's going to be rebuilt in place, I want to see those bridge abutments moved well back from the creek bed and as far inland as you possibly can without having any right-of-way problems. And I will be arguing that all the way through to the Coastal Commission, because you can be sure this is going to be appealed all the way through to the Coastal Commission.
Thank you. You make a good point. So if there is an appeal, that could delay our schedule. We're hoping to get it through as quickly as possible, but we will be going through that process with the Coastal Commission.
We have a few more comments. First, Crystalline.
Honestly, I think Paulette had her hand up first if you want to take
Okay.
her.
All right, Paulette.
Well, I just want to say that thank you, Jim. I'm glad to hear that this is your top priority. I want to make sure that everyone who's attending this continues to support you in making this, continuing to make this your top priority, because as I say, this is a really important traverse for us on the coast. I do think it's important, and this is where I'm with Dave Olson on this. I think it's really important to do this right and not to have to keep the patchwork band-aids. We need to do this right. Our coastal access is just so important to everybody in this community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Crystalline.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Kimberly Williams mentioned. So I do live in the neighborhood right near the bridge, and myself and many neighbors have chatted about moving it in, and I don't think you would have quite as much pushback from the neighborhood as you might think. Obviously, the people closest to it might have the hardest time, but the surrounding neighborhoods, I think, would be more amenable than it sounds like the county thinks they would be. So I would suggest during this process doing a little footwork and just checking us out, because we're pretty nice people and we kind of want the trail.
Thank you. Dan? You're muted, Dan.
Thank you, Claire. Question to Jim and Kwan. You know, historically, we've been presented with two types of armoring, either riprap or soil nailing and shotcrete. There are other methods of armoring. One I noticed recently is being used out at the Oyster Point Marina, and I'll try to describe it. I don't have the exact name of the method, but essentially what they do is what they're doing. It's clearly visible out at the Oyster Point Marina. Essentially, take smaller riprap, large masses of it, and then somehow encapsulate it into heavy, I guess it's stainless steel wire, essentially kind of holding, you know, a lot of rock together with some type of a wire, which, you know, as the waves go in, it would seems to me that it would soften, it would allow the water to kind of, you know, soften up the wave, maybe in combination with riprap and shotcrete. Jim or Kwan, can you comment on any, you know, you may have already chosen the method that you want to use, but can you talk about maybe the second or third alternative methods of armoring the area?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. I think that the method that you just mentioned is the Gabion basket type of structural repair. From my experience, the regional board and the Corps of Engineer, I'm sorry, not the Corps of Engineer, the California Fish and Wildlife are adamantly against using Gabion basket. And the reason they said is because it could harm wildlife trying to traverse through those baskets as habitat. So that's one of the concerns that they have, and that's why they have refused, from my experience, of allowing agencies to build reinforcement using Gabion baskets. We are looking at a combination of both the rock slope protection and the shotcrete with the soil nail. The soil nail with the shotcrete as a face covering provides the structural support for the abutment and the shoreline. The rock slope protection with a type of fabric, geosynthetic fabric, will be used to provide protection from the wave action. We're working with staff and with our engineering consultant to come up with different solutions to prevent the scouring that goes around the areas either upstream or downstream of where the impacts occur. I think Dave mentioned when the emergency repair were done a few years back, he saw additional erosion or more effect to the slope and the bluff because of that. So we are going to take a look at that and see what we can do to mitigate those concerns.
Okay, well, two questions. Number one, regardless of whether it's approved or not, can you comment on the effectiveness? And then second, is it absolute that the Gabion basket is not to be used at all, whether it's by itself only or with in conjunction with other methods?
From my experience, the Regional Water Quality Control Board and Fish and Wildlife will not permit any projects with Gabion baskets.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the effectiveness, can you comment on the effectiveness of it?
It does work. It does work if it's properly installed and properly maintained. One of the issues that I've seen in areas where Gabion baskets are installed is when you have willows and vegetation growing through them, over a period of time, they will break the basket and the wires from the basket. So the baskets and the rock and the gabing sized rock in there would fall out. So effectively, you would lose all the structural integrity from the wire basket.
Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and close out this part of the agenda. I'm very grateful to Jim and to Kwa for coming and taking this as seriously as they are. And I know there are a number of people here from other agencies, and I'm hoping that this meeting will serve as an impetus for us all to get together and solve this as quickly as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moving on to the second part of the agenda. This is a quick follow-up to what we've been doing right here. I thought it would be good for us to go on record supporting the efforts that are going on right now to solve this as quickly as possible. We do have a brief letter here that is going, if it's approved, to DPW, Caltrans, and the Coastal Commission. And usually we don't like to read these letters, but I think I'll read it because not everybody has access to it. So, and then the council will discuss and vote on whether to send it. So the letter is subject is closure of Mideo Bridge and subsequent detour onto State Road 1. Recently, the bridge on the coastal trail over Mideo Creek at Miramar was abruptly closed for safety reasons, largely related to coastal erosion. Users of this trail are detoured to the shoulder of Highway 1. This section is dangerous because of the narrow shoulder, speed of traffic, and lines of sight. The coastal trail in this area serves a large volume of bicycle and foot traffic in an area where vehicular road traffic is congested. Much of its use is recreational, but access to work, school, and commercial establishments is also substantial. All ages and abilities use the trail. This section of the trail connects Half Moon Bay with the communities of the Midcoast. We are aware that efforts are underway to resolve this situation and strongly support this. We have two major areas of concern. One, rapid replacement of the bridge in a way that avoids continued damage by coastal erosion. And two, immediate action to provide a safe detour route. Currently, we see pedestrians of all ages, bicyclists, and parents with strollers using this dangerous path. Immediate action could involve cautionary signage and other temporary measures to alert drivers to the detour. Since the bridge repairs may not be rapid, stronger measures to harden the detour route will be needed. Thank you for your attention to this urgent situation. The Midcoast Community Council is available to assist you in your efforts. So turning to the council, are there any clarifying questions on the letter? Michelle? Dan?
And no clarifying questions.
Okay. Dan? He's Dan?
Yeah, I haven't been able to hear everything. Internet connection problems, I don't know.
Okay, we'll come back. Dave?
No clarifying questions.
Barbara?
No.
Okay, are there any comments from the community? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the letter?
I so move.
Hold on, there's a comment, hand raised, Chris Johnson.
Chris?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you MCC for authoring this letter. I hope that it gets sent. You heard my comments earlier about it's just an unconscionable situation, what's going on out there on Highway 1. People are at risk right now who have no business being on Highway 1, who have never biked or been on Highway 1 in any capacity, and they're out there. So thank you to the MCC. In my opinion, this is what MCC's role in our community is. Like, you've got to push this issue. And just one last thing to piggyback on that, bootstrap on that, is without pushing on these kinds of things, then stuff like the crosswalk at Virginia and this new crosswalk popping up like mushrooms in Miramar, those things continue to happen unless there's some check, some call, some letter from the community. Thank you, MCC. I support the letter as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments? We have a motion on the floor to approve the letter, I believe. Dave, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Barbara. Would you call the roll?
Sure. Michelle Weil,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
So the letter is passed 5-0 and it will be sent out forthwith. Moving on to the next agenda item is the appointment of Chris Johnson to represent the MCC in planning for the county's Quarry Park pump track. Chris, I wonder if you could give us a quick update on what's going on with the pump track.
Right. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, so if everybody will remember, I think it was back in January. Yeah, it was back in January because it had just been after the Christmas break. The community had worked over the Christmas break surreptitiously and created a community-made pump track on the property of Quarry Park. Of course, that couldn't stand. There was no permit for that, and the permission hadn't been asked. So the county was going to come in and basically take some bulldozers and wipe it out. Fortunately, County Parks Director Nicholas Calderon came to the MCC meeting. I think it was the first meeting of the year, and addressed probably 100 people that night. Kids in the floor, in the well, back in the hallway, and agreed over at that meeting and the next meeting that within a year, if the community would agree to just back off of the making any more tracks like that and not use the one that they built, the county would within a year build an official pump track somewhere in Quarry Park with official permitting and the county's graces. So Director Calderon has been working on that, but of course then along came COVID. So everything's just kind of, like most things, everything's just kind of on hold. So now Director Calderon is getting back onto that because he really feels strongly he wants to try to meet his date of a year from last January. I don't know if that's possible, but I know that he's committed to it. And so as part of that, he's formed kind of a subcommittee, kind of being called the Quarry Park Pump Track Project Advisory Team. There's not really an official name, but that's what they're going to call ourselves. And really the purpose of this committee is to review and discuss all documents prior to being released to the public. So kind of like a clearinghouse we'll kind of look this over. I'll mention the people who are on this committee as well, so the community knows who's looking at this, just to kind of look at these plans prior to their being released to the public for public comment. That doesn't mean that the public's getting a digested version of the plans, or that we're going to make all these decisions and then the community has to take it or leave it. I think this is in part based on all the meetings we've had at El Granada Elementary and the many meetings we've had about the pump track. County and Director Calderon, I think, just wants to try to get this right. And I think when you hear the people that are on the subcommittee, you'll understand he's trying to do the right thing for the community here and to get this pump track built. Sorry about that. So the rest of the members of the subcommittee, Director Calderon, Scott Lombardi, who's a member of County Parks staff, myself, Rick Barker, who's a very prominent local bike person, Adriano Iggy, who's a builder, Susanna Cantrell, who's on the Parks Committee for GCSD, Yayo, who I believe is also a builder, and Barbara Dye, who's with GCSD as well. So I think that this is going to be a very effective way to speed this process up and bring the community some quality designs that hopefully will meet with quick approval. Next week, we're going to be meeting to look at the first set of conceptual designs. And once we've reviewed those, a virtual public workshop will be scheduled. A date hasn't been identified for that virtual public workshop, but we are meeting next week virtually to look at those first set of plans. Because in addition to kind of looking at the plans before they're released to the public, one of the roles of this subcommittee is to get the word out that pump track's back in motion, things are happening, there's going to be plans to review, and get the word out about when that virtual meeting will be available to the public. So as part of that, Nicholas has asked me to be liaison to the MCC, to keep the MCC informed, keep the community informed. And so that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Chris is too modest to tell you what his qualifications are, but he is former chair of the MCC and worked on the county's dog policy for the Parks Department, and a parent. So are there any questions or comments about the appointment of Chris to serve as our liaison?
I have a few things to say.
Okay.
So Nicholas and I talked at the same time. Nicholas was talking to Chris. This is going to be a somewhat of a joint project between county parks and GCSD. GCSD will be kicking in some of its parks money to help fund this. It is probably the single most visible project on the entire coast, other than the skate park in Half Moon Bay for kids anywhere on the coast. So it's really needs to be done. It's going to be a relatively low impact thing, and I'm very happy that Chris is willing to spend more time on it.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
I don't think you could get a better person to represent the MCC. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Barbara. You all are too kind. You're too kind.
Well, we're getting you to do some work for us.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got it.
Is there a motion or any further discussion? Is there a motion to approve our appointment of Chris to represent us to the committee?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Chris.
Second.
Barbara? Could you follow?
Certainly. Claire?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Did I ask you, Claire?
Yes, you did.
And I'll vote yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Chris.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Moving on to council activity. Does anybody have anything to report on?
I have. Go ahead, Barbara.
I just have a real quick, again, I went to the SEAT meeting last Friday and I talked with Chief Cosgrove about coming to a meeting to do the I think it's called Safe Haven or
Zone Haven.
What is it?
Zone Haven.
Zone Haven. Okay, to do a presentation. So I need to work with Len to do that, but he's happy to oblige. And they're redoing the CERT program to do a, because the last class got cut right the day before graduation because of the virus. So they're revamping that and that'll be starting up again. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Dave?
So I attended the Planning Commission, Half Moon Bay Planning Commission meeting last night. Harvey gave a summary of it. It was well attended. I will say they've got somewhat the same problem we have in getting people to pay attention until something's all done. But there was a really good turnout. There were definitely some people there who had very long experience with this. I've been following this since they started it. A number of the planning commissioners have, past planning commissioners. Lenny Roberts was there and spoke, Mike Ferreira. They were urged to, they had planned to bring it to the Planning Commission for final vote at the Planning Commission on August 25th. They were urged to give people more time since the very final versions of the last chapters and appendices only came out last Thursday. We'll see what happens with that. And I will repeat what some of the planning commissioners said last night. The first two chapters are very readable. If you've been following this at all, there are comparison documents between the 2018 version and the current version. So you can look at the comparison and see what's changed and why. Quite a bit of what Half Moon Bay is doing with the land use plan, land use program, is going to affect the Midcoast in one way or another. I will say, I think it's been been a very well-run process with Jolikas and her team. They've been in substantial communication with the Coastal Commission and the county to try and prevent any surprises. But this is not set in stone yet. Even after the Planning Commission approves it, the City Council will still have a chance at it. And then it's going to go to the Coastal Commission. And there's, with something this major, this is going to be, I think it's going to be 25 years since the last update. So the Coastal Commission will undoubtedly have more changes to suggest, but I think they've done a good job in suggesting some zoning changes, catching up with development changes in the way we think about things. It's an excellent document. It is huge, but it is well worth at least skimming the beginning and looking at the sections you care about. And I'm addressing this mostly to the people who may someday look at this on video. I think most of the people on this particular Zoom have already looked at it one way or another. And that's it.
Thank you, Dave. Adding on to what you just said, there were a number of comments at the meeting last night regarding Connect the Coast Side and the interest that Half Moon Bay has in working with the county and with the Midcoast to coordinate our circulation issues, as Len has pointed out. Anything else in the way of council activity? Okay, future agendas? What?
Yes, I have my hand up. This is Dan.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, say that I'm very interested in coastal erosion. Have limited bandwidth with all the other things going on in my life, but I do want to encourage others that are interested in coastal erosion to actually just go up to Pacifica in the Manor District, Esplanade Beach, the area where the apartments were torn down because of the erosion. There's a beach access right there. I think they started some work about 9 years ago. They built a concrete staircase at the bottom. I recently just walked through it just last week. You walk down to the beach level and you see some of the existing shotcrete soil nailing that they have done, I guess it's about 9 years ago. From what I don't understand, I'm not clear of the whole picture, but I believe that there was some failure to that. Basically, the hydraulic pressure, the water got behind it from the waves and started cracking the concrete. Right now, you can witness they're digging down probably about 15 feet, 20 feet below the sea level. They've got dewatering. They're extending the shotcrete down, I don't know, 10, 15 feet below the sand. It's all exposed. It's a good little field trip, little exercise, a little bit of a steep incline. Actually, part of it might be unsafe, so be very, very careful. That it is open to the public, but it's very steep. And the original switchback trail down to the staircase, which does the final drop onto the sand level. It is pretty steep, but there's a lot to see. I think that we as a coast side should be aware of what's going on up there and see what's working and what's not working and see how it's built. I just wanted to comment on just my little field trip up there last week. And encourage others to be aware of it and to check it out.
Thank you, Dan. Future agendas. I think
I'm sorry, I had two other things I completely forgot. Okay. Dan reminded me of one. First and most importantly, filing for the November 3rd election closed this afternoon at 5 p.m. We wound up with 4 people filing for the 2 seats. The 3 seats that we have open. So Dan filed, Andra Anderson, who was one of our applicants, filed, Greg Dieguez filed, and Jill Grant filed. So there will be an actual election for those seats. So won't be a simple appointment because we didn't get enough people filing. So that's great. The other was at the recent Harbor District Commission meetings. On the subject of erosion, they have pretty much finalized. They are going ahead with a green berm, living berm approach to the repairs on the West Point Trail. So there will be essentially cobble with sand and then bio emplacements to reduce the erosion along there. So that is something that's been a long time in process, and the previous commission had shot that down in favor of a Shot Creek wall. So that was a huge win. That's it.
Anybody else? Okay. Future agendas, I think that Len is planning to do something with Parks Department and connect the coast side, and Barbara's got the, what is it? Zone Haven?
Zone Haven.
Yeah, coming up. Anything else that anybody's planning for agenda items? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, good night.